Graduation is supposed to be one of those life milestones where you finally feel recognized for all the years of effort, right? You picture your family in the crowd, clapping, cheering, maybe even crying tears of pride. For me, that dream collapsed in the most humiliating way. While my classmates ran into the arms of their parents, mine were nowhere to be found. Why? Because they decided a Super Bowl party was more important than their child's biggest day. And yet, only days later, they came to me with a shocking request. I grew up in a household where my parents' priorities rarely lined up with mine. They loved parties, social gatherings, and anything that involved showing off. I, on the other hand, kept my head down, worked hard in school, and built my achievements quietly. My graduation was the first big moment I thought would bridge that gap. Weeks before the ceremony, I reminded them constantly. I even showed them my cap and gown, told them the time and venue, and they nodded absent-mindedly. "Don't worry, we'll be there," they'd say. I clung to that reassurance. The night before graduation, I overheard them on the phone with friends discussing food, drinks, and the big game. I brushed it off, telling myself surely they wouldn't skip my day. I should have known better. When the moment finally came, I stood on stage scanning the crowd, expecting to see their faces. Instead, there was an empty seat where they should have been. My heart sank. I smiled for photos, hugged my friends, but inside I was broken. After the ceremony, families gathered to take pictures, share flowers, and celebrate. I stood there alone. My friends' parents came over to congratulate me, and while I appreciated their kindness, it only highlighted the absence of my own. My parents weren't late, they just weren't coming. When I got home, the evidence hit me like a slap in the face. The house smelled of barbecue, music was still playing faintly, and the living room was a mess of soda cans and chip bags. My parents were sitting there laughing with friends, replaying highlights from the game. I walked in, cap and gown still on, diploma clutched in my hand, hoping, praying, for some recognition. Instead, they gave me a casual, "Hey, how'd it go?" like I'd just returned from the grocery store. I didn't even answer. I went to my room, shut the door, and cried harder than I had in years. It wasn't just about the graduation, it was the realization that no matter how hard I worked, they would never prioritize me over their social life. That night changed something in me. I promised myself I'd never rely on them for emotional support again. I was done hoping they'd change. You'd think after such a colossal disappointment, they'd at least feel guilty. But instead, just a week later, they knocked on my door with a smile on their faces. At first, I thought maybe they were going to apologize, maybe even make it up to me. I couldn't have been more wrong. My mom cleared her throat and said, "So, you know we've always supported you." My dad jumped in, "We were wondering if you could help us out a little. We're tight on money this month." I was stunned. They had skipped my graduation, but here they were asking for financial help like nothing happened. And it wasn't a small favor either, they wanted me to pitch in for bills and even cover some of their credit card debt. I had just landed a part-time job and was saving every penny for college expenses. Meanwhile, they had blown money on alcohol, party snacks, and who knows what else. When I hesitated, my dad frowned. "Come on, you're an adult now. You should contribute. Family helps family." I remember biting my tongue, feeling a surge of anger boiling inside me. That phrase, "family helps family," sounded like a cruel joke. Where was that family loyalty when I needed it? I sat them down and asked one question: "Why didn't you come to my graduation?" The silence that followed was unbearable. My mom looked away, my dad pretended to check his phone. Finally, my mom mumbled, "We already told you, it was the Super Bowl. We couldn't miss it." My jaw dropped. They didn't even try to sugarcoat it. No apology, no excuse, just pure selfishness. I snapped. Years of swallowed frustration poured out in one explosion. I told them how humiliated I felt, standing alone while everyone else celebrated with their families. I reminded them of the countless times I'd sacrificed my own comfort to make them proud, only to be ignored. And then, I dropped the final blow. "You want money? From me? After you couldn't even show up for the most important day of my life?" No. Not a chance. Their faces turned from shock to anger. My dad accused me of being ungrateful. My mom said I was overreacting. But I didn't budge. For the first time in my life, I stood my ground and made it clear I wouldn't be used as their backup plan. That night, I felt both terrified and liberated. Terrified because I knew I'd crossed a line in their eyes, but liberated because I had finally drawn a boundary they couldn't ignore. After that confrontation, things in the house grew icy. My parents barely spoke to me unless it was to make a passive-aggressive comment. They told relatives I had changed and become selfish, twisting the story to make themselves look like victims. At first, I questioned myself. Was I really selfish for saying no? But then I remembered that empty seat at graduation and the way they laughed over party snacks while I cried alone in my room. That image burned away my doubts. I focused on my goals. I worked harder at my job, saved aggressively, and applied for scholarships. Slowly, I started building a life independent of their control. Every paycheck felt like a small victory, every acceptance letter a reminder that I didn't need their validation to succeed. The ultimate moment of satisfaction came months later when I moved out. I didn't announce it, I just packed my things and left. The silence that followed from them was deafening. No begging, no attempt to stop me, just silence. And honestly, that was my closure. My parents had made their choice long ago when they skipped my graduation for a football game. I finally made mine, to stop waiting for them to show up, and to show up for myself instead. Looking back, my parents' absence at graduation was painful, but it taught me something valuable. Sometimes, the family you're born into isn't the family that truly supports you. I stopped chasing their approval and started investing in my own future. It hurt to cut ties, but it was the only way to protect my peace. And when they asked me for money, I realized they weren't interested in me, they were only interested in what I could give them. That day, I finally chose myself.